Vladni podcast GOVSI.
Veseli me, da na dan obeležitve 20. obletnice vstopa Slovenije v Evropsko unijo lahko gostim človeka, ki je pravzaprav leta 2004 odprl vrata največji širitvi unije v zgodovini, tudi naši državi. Romano Prodi, dobrodošli. Welcome. It's a pleasure and honor to have you here and to talk to you on this occasion.
No, it's my pleasure, not your pleasure. Well, both. For both of us.
Yes. It's been 20 years since you've symbolically opened the door to the European Union's biggest enlargement in history, right here in Nova Gorica. How does it feel to be back here in this moment, celebrating the anniversary?
Well, it's important for me also because, look, is for the enlargement, everything in this moment is positive. You know, in the beginning, I was criticized because you have done too much. Now, after this tension, after this war, everybody tells, look, thanks God that we did it. And of course, for me, Gorica and Nova Gorica is something that is special, you know, because when I was young, I was in Gorica to see how the border was closed with barbed wires, everything, you know. So to come here and to have an open way, it was it's nice, you know.
Mm-hmm. You came here also by bicycle many times.
Yes, but not now. Not now.
What do you remember the most about the evening of the 30th of April 2004 when heavy rain fell down on the crowded square, which was no longer separating Nova Gorica and Gorica or Slovenia and Italy, but was on the contrary connecting them?
Well, apart the rain, that was a heavy rain, you know, there was really a deep feeling that something was changing. It's not easy to see it when you are in politics, you know, generally you see. But in that moment, you had the feeling that you were turning a page of history. And that it was the reality, you know. And if we consider what happened after, you know, with many difficulties, many problems, but the page has been really turned.
So you're happy of it?
No, I am personally happy, and I consider this as a great result. And I am happy that the European press, less the press of my country, but the European press is remembering how successful has been the enlargement in terms of GDP, in terms of wage, in terms of security, in terms, you know. And so you think that, well, sometimes even the politicians, they do something good.
Nova Gorica and Gorica were the two border towns that looked forward most eagerly to the Slovenia's accession to the EU. Do you see the hosting of the cross-border European Capital of Culture next year as a significant opportunity for these two towns? And maybe this could serve also as a role model in the European context.
Yes. Look, must be so. It's not a link between Gorica and Nova Gorica only. It's a symbol for all of Europe. And if you don't do that, you miss an occasion, you know, for the two cities, but also for Europe, you know, because it is very unusual. If you think deeply, it's so unusual. You cannot find any other case overall Europe that has the possibility to do that, you know. But the occasion must be to connect here people from all the European countries, to have some sort of symbolic event strong symbolic event because, with the new media, you need something that keep the attention to that and to teach to the new generation what happened. This is important.
Italy and Slovenia are indeed friendly countries, but we are increasingly hearing Italian debates about the Foibe massacres and the exodus from Istria and Dalmatia after the Second World War. While historical facts should not be neglected, of course, the entire issue is being discussed without the proper historical context. Such a position, once primarily supported by the radical political right, is now widely accepted by the left as well.
But I was thinking a lot about that. I'm sorry, but I'm not surprised because it's so difficult to forget the past, and what I am afraid about Europe now, that in many cases, in many countries, you are like a driver that drives only looking at the back mirror. For electoral goals. When you wake up the national nostalgia, of course, everybody exploits it, left or right, and this is my fear. This is the reason why I think that the year of culture is the right place, culture, to say, look, let us give to the past the meaning of the past, but the night of 20 years ago, the symbol of the future. Because clearly in the past, we had so many illegal actions, so many tragedies, that if we analyze them, we shall never have any agreement. If you do that, we still build the borders.
Yes, but don't you agree that it's necessary to clarify past issues in order to move forward and build further cooperation? The report by the mixed Slovene and Italian historians who worked for years to arrive at a common interpretation of history in the border area, and whose conclusions were published back in the year 2000, has never been accepted by the Italian government.
I tell you what, I repeat you what I told before, this process of convergence, they need time and sometimes, and they need let's say a parallel movement, They can be done only when there is a group of politicians or citizens who they think that they need a compromise, because otherwise you will never accept it. And second, this is the reason why I insist on the education of young people. They need a new generation. A new generation. It's because the personal memory and the personal tensions with your neighbor, with your, they are the first, let's say, thing that keep in your mind, and clearly the politicians exploit this to have votes, to rise the passions and the tension. But this is both a psychological process and the necessity of time and a goodwill of the political leaders. and we never had the combination of all three. But this is Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Europe is going on, but needs time.
Yes, but like you said, that these issues that originated from the post-war period remain unsolved, and as such can always become a factor of division. Like, for example, Slovenia also contributed its share to the fiduciary bank account in Luxembourg as compensation for the properties left by Italian optants or esuli, thereby fulfilling its obligation. However, Italy did not accept that payment. So the thing is open.
But you are confirming what I am telling now. It's a problem that you need a different atmosphere to have these agreements, and it's not... Look, this process cannot be the consequence of a judge's decision. They need more. They need the idea that it's possible to be the future. And coming back to your previous question, the common year of the culture is this occasion. Because culture means to put on the same table the problem of the past and of the future in some sort of neutral table.
Mm-hmm.
And but there is look, from one side there is the idea that Europe is, and is correct, is too slow to change and so on. So from the other side, there is some sort of a revolt against Europe, of tension against Europe. There is this contradictory feeling in this moment. And we have to close our eyes and look for the future.
But I still must ask you, for example, the Italian president Mattarella was invited to come to the Isle of Rap on the anniversary of the closing of the Italian concentration camp, but he didn't show up. Why, do you think?
Look, but why you don't ask me which was my feeling when I have seen the two presidents hand in hand, like brothers, in front of all, visiting both the place of tragedy. And this was the moment for the future. Then you cannot do every day this, You send a message and then you go on. But if you think you have done this and you didn't do that, of course, you cannot have everything done, because President Mattarella and his Slovenian colleague, they have given publicly the message that the two symbols of the two countries are hand in hand. This is the positive message.
Yes, but in the Italian public, there was this picture of the ex-Yugoslavian president that came to apologize for all the horrible things that happened to the Italian people. That was the most important thing that evolved in the Italian medias. Or you don't think so?
Well, look, I have simply to repeat what I told before. You are analyzing what you think are the unaccomplished results. I am stressing the great progress that has been done. So if we go on and putting on the table this so different point of view, we never have a solution, Look, if you look to the past, you will always complain something, even in families. And when you have symbolic reunion, you have to think that this is a new starting point.
Okay. What do you think about Giorgia Meloni's Italy today?
Well, you know that I have always been, I still have different political ideas. She is, from what we are interested now, let's say the European policy, a total ambiguity, you know, from one side backing von der Leyen, from the other side hand in hand with Orban. So I have always had a totally different point of view, that if we go back to this stressing the national point of view, certainly we'd never have a solution of all the problems you raise at me, you know, because you need a turning page. And I repeat, she wants to go back to a totally different idea of what I have about the future of Europe. So, let us, apart the different view of the social policy of all that, but we are talking about the international point of view. I do think that we have to choose an Italy linked to NATO, linked to the West, but with the European entity that can have a voice in international policy. So I cannot accept neither a position of fragmentation simply because we have the American protection. That is, I repeat, indispensable, but that must be balanced by a strong European position, because otherwise we shall never exist. If you think to all the great international issues, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, we never had a European position because we have no foreign policy. So my point, and this is different from Meloni, is America has a strong alliance, a strong friend, but with a European foreign policy that can have a dialogue with our American friends.
We come to that a little bit later. You were a central figure of the Italian left in the so-called Second Republic. How do you perceive the perspective of the political left and right in Italy and across Europe? Are you concerned about the influence of Euroscepticism?
Look, let us talk in the short term, let's say the next elections. I don't think that there will be major changes. Some movement to the right, but not so deep to change the picture. In the long term, it depends upon what we shall do. If we go on with the mediation, people will not love Europe. When we did the Euro, the enlargement, people, we had opposition, but we had also the idea that we are building something new. If you don't give this message clearly, the European policy will decrease and we go back to the national position, And so I repeat, now nothing will happen, nothing serious will happen in the future. Either we'll build foreign policy, European army, the end of the veto right, that with the veto right we cannot take any decision, and we have to build not only foreign policy together, but some sort of common fiscal picture, because otherwise we shall never have Europe. If you don't do that, we arrive to the end of Europe. I don't think so, but Europe needs action now. Mm-hmm. And in this perspective, to end what we call the enlargement, let's say the Balkan countries are part of Europe. They don't bring us any problem, because together a new country could be 1% of European GDP. Mm-hmm. And so the process must have let's say, but when we did the enlargement 20 years ago, there was a clear engagement to change the institution. And we didn't do it. So we have to go on with the new countries, but with completely new institutional framework.
Yes, you already mentioned that there is a strong willingness for reforms and the elimination of the member states' right of veto. The aim is to replace unanimity voting with majority voting to make the union function better. Yeah. Will it be difficult to apply these changes?
Yes, it will be difficult. But, there are moments in history. Think to the Euro. The Euro was not approved with unanimity. The Euro, only 12 countries voted in favor. Then, now we are 20. And we shall go on because many want to come in. And we have to do the same. Look, difficult to have immediately a common European army. But if there is an agreement between 4 or 5 member states, the day after, other 10 will join. And look, if some country doesn't want to get in, it's like the Euro. He will stay out, But think that because of the exit of Brexit, no country will get out of Europe now. Mm-hmm, no country.
When do you think that this will happen, this reform will come to reality?
Depends upon the elections. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But, and depends upon France. Because the great jump, look, with the Ukrainian war, Germany has changed its policy. And now a country who was refusing to spend €1 for defense, now they have a budget that is more than double than the French one. So we need a common army, but it's possible to have a common army if France, Germany pays, and other pay, but Germany pays more than others. And the big decisions, Security Council and nuclear armament, are taken by one country only. So we need a great change. I think that history is moving in the direction of obliging it. We need time, as concerning the problem, I raised it before, but in the young generation there is more and more the idea that it's common sense to share cost, power among European countries in order to survive. Because we are like a nut between China and United States. And, we lose our dignity.
Illegal migration will continue to be a persistent challenge in the years to come. The EU adopted a new pact on migration and asylum, which established quotas for the distribution of immigrants that each state will accept, with the option of payment as an alternative. Will wealthy states choose to pay rather than accept asylum seekers, and leaving the poorer countries to bear the burden?
I was not happy about the last decision concerning migration, because you cannot, let's say, balance with this money situation in which you have to decide how people will move. We must have a common foreign policy. But, in the future, there will be a change, not because of political decision, but because of low level of birth of all European countries. Now, remember what I'm telling you, now all the politicians that are against immigrants, they gain votes. In 10 years' time, no more, there will be a competition among European countries to attract immigrants. We have already all these signals, but as I told you before, people decide looking and guiding with the back mirror. And but Europe will need immigrants, and so now let us go on with this bad and unequal situation, but let us prepare to the future, because when you have 1.2, 1.3 children per woman, you are depressing the population. Our countries are already in this situation.
So the changing of thinking is needed.
I repeat, there will be competition to attract immigrants.
The relationship between the EU and Russia is merely a reflection of the relationship between the USA and Russia, indicating Europe's political dependency. No one is talking about peace anymore. NATO's chief, Mr. Stoltenberg, speaks of Ukraine's potential victory over Russia, the world's second largest nuclear power. How can this be understood?
Well, I have the opinion that Europe has the duty to defend Ukraine and to work for peace. I have been honestly surprised that there were peace, let's say, tentatives done by Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and no one done by Europe. This is absolutely incredible, because this is not contradictory with the French, with the American, and with helping Ukraine. But you cannot speak about peace as a dirty word, as somebody was hinting recently. You have to say, look, we work in favor of Ukraine. We give Ukraine all the defense, but we have to do all the efforts to think about the future settling of the problem. You can't go on with this endless war.
You mentioned that the EU is expected to play a greater role in multilateral cooperation. When discussing China, the country maintains a trade surplus of hundreds of billions of dollars with both the USA and Europe, leading to severe tensions, particularly with the United States. What could ease these tensions?
Well, we have recent episodes, the meeting between Xi Jinping and the German Chancellor and the French President last week, they had no result. Let's sum up very, very simply. The results were only in the meeting between Xi and Orban. So clearly you see that China is trying to divide and rule. And I don't think that this is neither in the Chinese interest nor in the European interest, because we have to write some protocol of the relations between China and Europe that is compatible with the interests, but to have a dialogue. Now we have not a dialogue. We have black base and reciprocal black base and reciprocal tension. There was a moment in which, after years of negotiations, the former German Chancellor, Mrs. Merkel, approved a protocol that was not an agreement, but the idea of, let's say, having a long-range strategy with the relation of China. But this was the interval between Trump and Biden. But when Biden came, the president, this was absolutely disappeared, and they started the tension between China and Europe with unbearable decision of Chinese to, let's say, to accuse European members of parliament, a European answer to that, And so the window of opportunity to arrange has disappeared, and now I am not optimist. I am pessimist about the relations that we have. As I repeat, the scarce results of the meetings we have. But clearly, look, when you have a meeting between a French leader, a German leader, or Italian leader in China, this reminds me the old joke of 50 years ago, when an aide of President Mao tell to the president, look, President, the Swiss army is invading China. And Mao answered, in which hotel they are? We are, in the meeting in Paris, Mrs. von der Leyen was just a spectator. And France was the actor. In Beijing, the actor was Germany. Look, if you act together, the result will be different.
You also said that the end of the war in Ukraine can be reached only by cooperation of United States and
so
China.
Clear. It's so clear. The end of the war in Ukraine will be only in the moment in which China and United States, then the mediation can be done by anybody, by you, by everybody. But you have to start with the idea, look, we have to decide that the game of this war is over.
Is all that can be done about the continuous crisis in the Middle East, which is currently manifesting one of the greatest humanitarian tragedy of our times, that the diplomacy only achieved temporary ceasefire?
Even in this case, you didn't have Europe. You had Egypt, you have Qatar, you have everybody, no European, But in this case, I do think that I do hope that we shall have a quicker decision, quicker end of this tragedy. I do hope because in this case is mainly in the hands of United States, and for the American president is urgent to put an end to it. So I do think that the tragedy could end sooner, before the American elections, because this, Netanyahu is still insisting to invade the last part of Gaza, but is not only a tragedy, but is a nonsense, is something that has no political comprehension. It's only an action of a politician to save himself.
In a recent interview for the TV Slovenia, you mentioned that young people don't realize that the peace they live in was brought to them by a united Europe. In the West, there has been peace for the third generation, which is the first time in 1,500 years since the fall of the Roman Empire. Is this your message to the next generation, that you want to bring them, that they should preserve the EU?
Yes, but I always also added that the memory, the teaching of this, that Europe brought peace, can be accepted by the new generation only if we renew it. Because when I speak to the students about peace, they look at me as a prehistoric animal. We always had peace. Professor, what you are doing? So you must tell them, teaching that what is happening now, the danger that we could have even tomorrow. And this is why I always insist that you can have a strong Europe only if you renew Europe, only if you do something new. Peace is a process. It is not some sort of treasure that you can keep in your pockets. It's something that you have to renew every day. This is why you have to tell them, look, we have done it, but we have to do something. And in the specific area here, the year of culture together is simply a small, important other demonstration that we build peace for the future.
It's building from the integration from bottom up.
Yeah. No, but renew it. Because people live on their own experience, not reading history books. Clear?
Well, thank you very much for this interview, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.